Hi, I'm Dr. Erica Bruner. I am a vet in Vermont whose practice is focused on end-of-life care and acupuncture for dogs and cats. And today I'm going to be talking about a question which I am often asked, and that is, should my kids be present at the euthanasia of our pet? And the first thing that I would say about this is that you should decide first whether you think that makes sense, whether you're okay with that, whether you think it's appropriate. And then you should ask your kid what they want. The reason that I think you should ask yourself first is that we have to recognize as parents that in any given situation with our kids, we often have to help them deal with their feelings, and we have to put aside our own in order to do that. And that's just the way parenting is. We've done it 1,000 times. But in the case of euthanasia of our pets, we may want to have the opportunity to have all of our feelings without worrying about someone else's feelings and without having to take care of somebody else and explain things to them. So the younger our kids are, the more that may play a role in our decision about whether or not we want them to be present. And I do encourage you to think about how much space and time and emotional energy you're going to need in this situation. And do you want to be able to focus on yourself and not to have to worry about how your kid is feeling or how they're responding? And if the answer to that is yes, and if you think that they're going to have some, challenges with it, then I would encourage you to find some other care for them during the time of the euthanasia so that they aren't there. And I think that's a perfectly fine choice to make. On the other hand, you might be feeling like it's really important for your kid to be there if they want to. And that is another key, if they want to. So I really think it's important to involve them in that decision. And the only way that they can make this decision in a useful way is if they know what to expect. So that's another key, is really talking to them very clearly and very simply and calmly about what they can expect. When I come to a house to do a home euthanasia and there are kids there, I always explain things. I try to keep my explanation relatively simple and relatively straightforward, I guess I would say, but also very clear. And I avoid the use of the word sleep, and I do explain exactly what I'm going to do and what it's going to feel like for their animal. And I also explain what we're going to see, because kids especially aren't very familiar, and the younger they are, the less so they are, with what an animal under sedation might look like or what a dead animal might look like. And I want them to know about that enough so that they can make a decision whether they want to be there, if that's the appropriate question. I'm sort of assuming, I try to have these conversations in advance with parents, but I am assuming that if I am there and they are there, that they have already had that conversation. But we have to be prepared for the kids to have the flexibility to be as involved in the process as they are comfortable being. So especially for younger kids, that may well mean that in the middle of it, they're not appearing to understand the gravity and the seriousness and the painfulness of the whole situation, which, when they're very little, they really don't understand the permanence of death. And even when we explain that to them, it's something that's so hard to wrap their mind around that they don't get it. So during the process, especially if someone is, like, let's say maybe 5 or so or younger, they're going to be saying silly things. They're going to be playing with the dog's ears. They're going to be deciding that now is a good time to go off and read a book or draw a picture. They're going to have questions that maybe are hard to answer right in the middle of everything. So if we're prepared for all of that to happen, and if we've talked about it in advance, that's going to be the most useful thing. But explaining to a kid what they can expect so that they can make their own decision about whether or not they want to be there is really key. And then during the process, having someone, maybe it's you, maybe it's another parent or family member, maybe it's a friend who can be entirely available to that kid to help them with dealing with whatever's coming up for the kid, is really helpful to have. So, it's hard enough often for us to deal with the loss of our beloved pet. Maybe this is someone that we had in our lives for 10 years before we had our kid. Maybe they were sort of like our first kid. So that's a huge deal. And when our kid, especially when they're young, is in the middle of doing whatever they're doing, going, he looks weird, why do his eyes look that way? Or, I need a snack. Like, we have to be okay with that. We can't require them to have any specific feelings about what's going on. We have to be all right with them being incredibly sad or freaked out and needing to leave, or not seeming to really have too many negative or scary or painful feelings at all. I mean, I went to a home euthanasia with 2 kids who were probably around like 6 to 8 years old, and they spent the whole time just kind of happily chatting and playing, and that was fine with me, and luckily it was fine with their parents. And yet their parents also were sad about the loss of this dog that they were euthanizing, and they were able to kind of manage all of that at one time, but it's hard to do sometimes. So being prepared for those things is useful. So let's see. You decide first. That may depend on their age or the response that you expect from them. Talk to your vet about what to expect during the process. Maybe the vet can talk to your kid if they're good at that. Maybe you decide to be the one that talks to your kid. Ask your kid whether they want to be there, and in order to have them understand how to give an answer, you need to explain things to them. Be prepared to tend to their needs before we tend to our own, or to have someone to help with that, and be prepared that they may need to leave the room. And then just keep talking. Talk before, talk during, talk after. I'll do a video about the exact specific things that I say to kids when I am there for euthanasia of their pets. And then I'm going to try to get my daughter to do a video with me also. She's 12, and she has experienced the death of 2 of our pets. And so she'll talk about that with me. And if you would like some help and a consult about your specific situation, if you're in Vermont, I can come to your house. If you're anywhere in the world, I can do a consult with you over the phone or over Skype. And if you have an idea for this series, please let me know. And for any of those things, you can reach me through my website, heartofvermontvet.com. At the bottom of every page on the website, there's a contact form. Fill that in and it will get emailed to me, and we'll talk. Thanks.